As the sun slowly dipped below the horizon, I was in the kitchen preparing dinner, chopping ingredients, mixing sauces. When Sebastian walked in, his presence felt heavier than the spices that filled the room. He'd been gone for a while, and that distance brought a strange comfort, a kind of bittersweet relief. He was no longer my little boy. He was home from university, carrying himself with a new maturity, a more adult energy that wrapped around both of us. He was no longer just the child I used to tuck into bed at night, but a young man, strong, grounded, standing on his own. I turned to look at him, and something about the quiet look in his eyes stopped me. There was a depth there, something I couldn't quite place. He sat there looking at me, his look not the same as the one he'd given me over the cereal years ago. Cereal years ago, I missed that old look, the one that sparkled with curiosity when he used to hover around me asking what was that as I made breakfast. Now that innocent curiosity was gone, replaced by something I couldn't name. We chatted over dinner about this and that, small talk to keep the atmosphere light, but every time he looked my way, I felt like his gaze was cutting right through my thoughts. After dinner he suggested we watch an old film, one we used to love to watch together when he was little, and I nodded and agreed, and in the dim light, sitting next to him, I couldn't ignore the way he had grown, the way he had changed, and somewhere deep inside I felt caught between the mother and the daughter. At one point he placed his hand on the edge of the couch, just brushing mine. That's all, it was just a tiny touch, innocent enough, but something inside me flared up, and I don't know why I pulled my hand away, feeling the tremor in my fingers, and quickly looked away. Ashamed of what that simple moment had stirred in me. I shouldn't be feeling this, I shouldn't be feeling this, I shouldn't be feeling this, I shouldn't feel this, I couldn't feel this. My thoughts felt like they were dragging me down. I made up an excuse about being tired and got up to go to bed, hoping a night's sleep would clear my head the next morning. I tried to shake off this strange unsettled feeling by distracting myself by making coffee in the kitchen. Sebastian came in and looked at me with the same expression he had last night, that heavy look that seemed to see too much when he asked me if I had seen too much. I hesitated, but then trying to ignore the tension growing between us wasn't working. Maybe the familiarity of our old walk would help us get back to normal. As we walked through the trees, memories flooded back to me. I thought of all the stories I used to tell him, our picnics, the carefree way he used to laugh when he was a kid, but somehow all those memories just made the reality more painful. All those memories only made the reality more obvious. Things were different now. We'd both changed. We turned back towards the house as the sun sank lower, and the walk was mostly silent except for the rustling of leaves and the faint wind. By the time we got home, darkness had set in. We entered quietly, almost as if we'd both come up against an invisible wall. I went to turn on the stove, the sound filling the room. The silence as Sebastian lingered by the door, his serious expression from earlier even more intense now, more inescapable. As I felt his gaze on me again, I turned to face him, suddenly desperate to say something, anything to break the silence, but I couldn't find the words. Sebastian took a step towards me, his eyes deep with something complicated, almost too heavy for either of us to bear. We stood like this for what seemed like an eternity until he finally spoke, his voice soft but steady. "Mom," he said, taking a deep breath, "I sometimes feel like I don't know, like you look at me differently. Like something has changed." His words sent a jolt through me. Part of me wanted to comfort him, but another part knew we couldn't cross that line. I swallowed, trying to keep my voice calm and steady. "Sebastian, you're my son," I said, barely above a whisper. "I'm your mother." I kept saying it to myself, clinging to it like a lifeline, even though I felt something breaking inside me. Sebastian looked down for a moment, then back up at me, his gaze steady. "I know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper too, "but sometimes there are things I feel I can't shake, no matter how hard I try, and just saying it out loud feels strange." Strange, I guess I could feel the weight of his struggle, the tension in his voice, like he was saying it to himself as much as he was saying it to me. Every part of me wanted to reach out and tell him everything would be all right, to just hold him like I used to, but we couldn't go back, and I knew I had to protect him from this. From both of us, so I met his gaze and tried to keep my tone firm yet gentle. "Sebastian," I said, we can't be anything else, can we? It can't be anything else, you know that. don't you? He nodded slowly, a sad, understanding smile tugging at his lips. Yes, he said quietly, I do. It's just hard to control how you feel sometimes. The silence that filled the house after that was like a living thing that bound us both together, leaving an indelible mark for all the words we had said and not said, for all the things we felt but couldn't act on. I knew that moment would stay with us. I knew that this moment would stay with us, that sometimes there are boundaries that just have to be respected, no matter what's in our hearts. As the night deepened and the silence enveloped us, I realized that some things are best left as quiet memories. When I finally make it to bed tonight, there's this rush of excitement inside me that I can't shake. I lie down and try to close my eyes, but my mind races. Sebastian's gaze. The way he stands so close, the warmth he gives off, it's like I've never seen him before. I can't explain what I'm feeling, even to myself. As a mother I shouldn't feel such a pull. But every second I think about him it gets harder and harder to keep it under control. Is it just motherly love, or is there something here I'm not admitting? Honestly, I'm kind of freaked out by how much I'm questioning myself. There's this whole battle going on in my head. I know I need to push these feelings down, get back to the clear, simple love I'm used to. But alone in the quiet of the night these tangled emotions keep creeping up and I don't know how I'm going to feel in the morning. I need to find the strength to hold on, to keep things the way they should be. But still part of me wonders, what if I just let myself feel? Would that be so wrong?